Hello and welcome, everyone. Very excited to have all of you here. It is super fun to see some familiar names and to see some new ones as well. So today's conversation is on team coaching. And let's set this up properly. First off, yes, we're recording it. Yes, you will receive a link to the recording afterwards. We'll load it on our YouTube channel and email everyone that registered so you can come back to it and check it out again. The next thing to share with all of you is that it is so much fun when you want to come on live and ask your questions or discuss something, share a thought. Each and every one of you is invited to do that. The way we can do that is just put a note in the chat box and say, hey, unmute me, and I can unmute you and you can come in live. It's important to note that yes, we're recording to go on YouTube, so your voice will be heard there, which means if you prefer not to do that, you're welcome to put your questions in chat box. I'll be monitoring that all the way through. Let's really make this about you getting what you want out of the conversation. So what is the agenda as promised on the website where you all registered? First off, I did add in, we're going to have a couple of quick definitions to give us context for where we're going. We will go through ICF's new team coaching competencies. These are aligned with the current core competency model, and they are in addition to coaching competencies. We'll talk about preparing for and planning your team coaching. We'll explore different processes and technologies for when you are doing team coaching, share some ideas. So I've got a couple, and I'm guessing there's a lot more coming from the people that are here. Time for Q&A, and then of course, a look at resources available to you. Getting started with the definitions, chances are most of you have seen this one, ICF's definition of coaching. I like to highlight in here that we are partners, and this is huge because when you think about team coaching, once again, it's going in not as the expert, instead truly as a partner. And the idea of it being thought-provoking and creative is totally applicable when you're talking about team coaching, just as it is with the individual coaching we all do. In terms of what is team coaching, it's preparing for and coaching a team focus, discussions, process, and planning. So let's talk about what is a team. Most commonly, it is a work team. They work together in an organization. Now, in terms of what kind of team, it may be a team that's together for a particular project. It may be an operations team or a management team. They may have oversight of a certain area, or it may be a team that all works on the same tasks. Whatever it is, they work together and they have a common goal. Now, less common will be teams that involve people from multiple organizations. A great example of this is when you think about nonprofit organizations such as United Way, they will bring in executives from multiple companies who help with the whole fundraising campaign. And so now you have executives from multiple workplaces that are together as a team with the common goal of supporting United Way. That's another example of a team. So the key thought here is that the team has a common goal or objective. And I'm differentiating that from group coaching. Group coaching, the people may or may not know each other, and actually more commonly, they don't know each other. And while they have a common interest, the goals are individual. So for example, depending on the type of coaching you do, if you work with leaders and executives, you may have a group coaching offering where it's all executives and leaders at a high level, and they come together and talk about challenges and brainstorm with each other. Alternatively, let's go a total different direction with that. It may be you support people who are going through a big life change. Let's say maybe people are going through a divorce, and you do group coaching for them, and their focus is individual goals. They're all dealing with, okay, how do I set myself up after? How do I move through this and start thinking for ahead to what the new life is going to look like? And then, of course, a whole different area may be career coaching, and it's a group of people looking for a job. So clearly they have individual goals. They have common interests in terms of how they're doing resumes and their job search and maintaining confidence, etc. So whereas a team has the same goal or objective that they're working together on, and it's typically an assigned thing, a group is people with a common interest and they're working on individual goals. The competencies from ICF on team coaching are specific to team coaching. That is what they talked about. That is what they addressed. And in doing the conversation, you'll see they took competency 1 that we all have with our core competencies for a coach, and then they added additional subpoints to it. So competency 1 for coaches, and by the way, there are programs on YouTube if you want to go through and learn those competencies, the updated ones. So competency 1 is demonstrates ethical practice. And in addition to the other points that are already there, you have more. You have what you see on the screen here. So what is all of this telling you? And instead of reading this, I'm going to highlight a few key things. When you're doing team coaching, you're working with the whole team as one entity, and they are your client. It is very important, just as with individual coaching, that in team coaching, you're clear about the different roles. Are you a coach? Are you doing team building activities, training, consulting, mentoring, facilitation, or other modalities? And it may be that you as a coach offer more than one of these types of services. So then what's essential is planning with the team. Okay, which modality is going to be in place when? What are you doing and when are you doing it? What is the reason for using the different modalities? One of the things we often talk about when we do coach training is we say, if you're going to do, for example, looking at this, team building, that's an initial thing. That's people getting to know each other. Or possibly you do training first and then do some team building. After that comes the consulting and the mentoring. Coaching comes last. Coaching is advanced development, and you get advanced results with it. If you do coaching and then switch to doing consulting or training, you take away the value of the coaching. It's almost as if you're saying, okay, I'll ask the questions, you all tell me what you think and create your plan, and then I'll come back as a trainer or consultant and tell you what to do. You start with the training and the consulting, then you move to the coaching. Our competencies here do call on us as coaches to have the knowledge and skill for each of the different modalities that we do. This is, of course, most pertinent when we're talking about the coaching piece of it. And when you're doing team coaching, you've got a whole nother set of dynamics going on because you've got multiple personalities, multiple influencers in terms of what's happening. So as a coach, it's being really clear. Now let's talk about embodying a coaching mindset. Again, it's a competency for all of us as coaches. These are additional points to the competency. So the first one talks about coaching supervision. Some of you are familiar with that. Some of you are unfamiliar with that. More commonly recognized is mentor coaching, which is when you're pursuing a credential and you work with a mentor coach in that process. Coaching supervision is at a whole different level, and the intention behind that is this deep exploration of what's happening and how it's working and what the impact is, so that you are reflecting on your own coaching and how you're engaging with your client. Makes sense that this fits here because in the competency of embodying a coaching mindset, it talks about our own commitment to our ongoing learning and to our self-reflective practice. The additional point here that is significant is how we are called upon as team coaches to be aware of the dynamics in the team and the patterns in terms of how people are behaving and communicating and functioning. And that truly takes the ability to sit back and observe and simply notice. Then we have competency 3, establishes and maintains agreements. Much like what we talked about with individual coaching, you're explaining what it is and is not. You have the added complication of explaining the difference between team coaching and other modalities of working with a team. I think the next one is significant too. You're partnering in terms of that agreement with all relevant parties. Who all does that include? You may be talking to the team leader. It may be the HR department's bringing you in, the members of the team, other stakeholders. It is fairly common in team coaching to explore having a co-coach because there's a lot going on with the team. And perhaps one of the coaches is really strong in the observation and the other is really strong in the more facilitative coaching role. And you divvy up the responsibilities in that way. So whoever is going to be involved in this, you're partnering with all of them. And similarly, you're also looking at how ownership of the process is going to be shared between the coach, the leader, and the team itself. And it's an important conversation because it sets up how you're having the engagement with that team. Our fourth area of competency cultivates trust and safety. Now, chances are you're really good at doing that one-on-one with your individual clients. And then the questions we get here is, okay, how do I do that with a whole group of people at once? And of course, one of the challenges here, we talk about confidentiality and maintaining client confidentiality. When it's an individual client, it's them and us and that's it. When you're talking a team, there's multiple people involved. Can I guarantee whether or not somebody else on the team is going to share something outside of the team coaching session? I can't control that. And we've got to be aware of that. And that is going to be an influencing factor. What that means is people on the team will question, okay, what can I share? What is okay to share in this space and what isn't okay? How comfortable am I trusting the other people on the team? How vulnerable do I want to be? What risks do I want to take? And that's a challenge. And it's an important conversation to have with the team. How are you going to handle it so that when there is team coaching, the opportunity for an open, honest conversation is there? How do you support that? And creating that with everybody involved in the process. We talked earlier with Competency 1 about working with the whole team as one client, one single entity. Here, in addition to that, it's promoting the team seeing themselves in that way. They have a common identity. And then it goes on to talk about, in addition to them having the common identity, we're also supporting expression of individual and then also collective feelings, perceptions, concerns, beliefs, hopes, and suggestions. So it's a balance where we're bringing in the individual and we're bringing in the team. It calls on us to encourage participation and contribution by everyone on the team. This can become a challenge with the different personalities. Some people are very comfortable jumping in and speaking up and saying things out loud, and other people less so. They're interested in thinking first, in talking less. They're more reserved. So in a case like that, how do you manage this and ensure that everybody has the opportunity? Part of our job, managing the dynamics of that. I love the next point because it says, hey, bring everybody in on this. The whole team is involved in developing, maintaining, and reflecting on team rules and norms. So you're including everyone in that process to create those rules instead of one person dictating them. Of course, promoting effective communication. Well, we think about effective communication ourselves as coaches, and it goes further because it's how people on the team are communicating with each other. And it brings you to that next point, is there internal conflict? And identifying that and resolving it. All of this is part of creating that space for that open and honest conversation. So think about how it built and consider working with all of it together. Also important, so competency 5, maintains presence. And this is where sometimes the co-coach can be really helpful. You're using all of your sensory and perceptual abilities and really noticing everybody. So sometimes if your focus is asking the question, doing the rephrasing, asking the next question, probing and digging, etc., it can be challenging to do that and also be noticing each individual and what's going on with them. So having a co-coach can make sense because one can be doing the observing and the noticing, the other can be asking questions and rephrasing. So figuring out, does it make sense to do it yourself, or does it make sense to bring somebody else in on that part of the conversation? It also talks about having the members of the team pause and reflect on how they're interacting, which means as a coach jumping in and saying, hey, what are you noticing about the way you're having that conversation with each other or how you're functioning together? And then it gives us the point of moving in and out of the dialogue. This is an interesting one. We talk in individual coaching, sometimes you have a client that really coaches themselves, and very commonly when they've worked with a coach more, you have that happening. And so as the coach, we do very little, simply hold the space and the client goes and they ask themselves the next question. This is even more common in team coaching because what's happening is the coach is in and out of the dialogue. And so sometimes they're involved and sometimes they just step out because the team is moving forward productively on their own. So an awareness of when it makes sense to be there and when it makes sense to step out. With competency 6, listens actively. In and of itself, you can imagine the challenge because now, in addition to listening to one person, you're actually listening to everybody on the team and listening to multiple people and multiple considerations at the same time. It goes on to say, in addition to noticing the perspectives that one person is sharing, you're also noticing how it relates to what other people are saying. And that takes a lot in terms of your presence of really noticing what's going on. It says We notice how each team member impacts the collective in terms of energy, engagement, and focus. I'm guessing all of you are familiar with somebody in the workplace that drags others down or gets them off track. Are you noticing that when it's happening on the team? Or alternatively, is this the person that is the cheerleader for everybody else and supporting everybody else moving forward? So how is each person impacting the team? The verbal and nonverbal communication patterns, and being aware of that, because invariably there'll be alliances, conflicts, and growth opportunities amongst the team members. So recognizing that and being in a place as a coach where you share that awareness and invite them to address it in the way they want to, however they want to. As a coach, it's on us, of course, in team coaching to model that confident and effective communication. So everything you learned about doing that as an individual coach is even more complex when you're dealing with multiple people and incredibly significant. And having the team own their own dialogue. With Competency 7, just as we do with individuals, you're challenging the team's assumptions, behaviors, their processes. And the goal there being to enhance awareness or insight. And as we do with individual clients, you're using questions and other techniques to foster that team development, to facilitate their ownership. And then with Competency 8, facilitating client growth, you're encouraging the dialogue and the reflection so that the team is identifying their goals and the steps to achieve those goals. This will carry through to identifying their potential challenges or barriers, how they're moving past that, to identifying how they're managing accountability individually and as a team. The ICF document that talks about team coaching competencies literally diagrams these additional points with the original core competencies. It is something for all of you. It's available on ICF's website. It's available on all your coach login pages as well, so you have access to it. Definitely worth going into and reading. So now we're going to dig into more about team coaching. So for example, a couple of you in your questions ahead of time said, okay, is this really the right thing for me? Do I want to go there in terms of team coaching? And the first thing I'm going to say before I bring up the points is team coaching is hot. Companies are using it. They're looking for more of it. It's an incredible value add to your services. It is an opportunity for you to expand your reach. Sometimes you work with individuals and that leads to team coaching, and often working with a team leads to individual coaching. It's a smart value add in terms of services you offer as a coach. So what are the reasons for team coaching? Accessing the wisdom of the collective, of everybody on the team. You're sparking creativity. You're all familiar with how you get that conversation going and the ideas one person throws out invites more ideas from the others, and it builds and grows. It's a fabulous tool for managing conflict. Those of you that did the certified professional coach remember the stop conflict model, and it's a great way to support that team managing that, dealing with it, so they do move forward collectively and effectively. It's a tool for improving relationships because you're supporting how they communicate with each other. You're supporting everyone being heard. Great opportunity in terms of enhancing that level, that relationship, which in turn will also increase productivity. In and of itself, team coaching can be focused on increasing productivity. How are they doing what they're doing, and how can they be more efficient with it, more effective? You're increasing engagement of everybody that's there. And of course, team coaching is a fabulous opportunity in terms of influencing culture in an organization. I do want to invite those of you that are here and have experience with team coaching. What are some of the other benefits that you have seen come out of it? And put that in the chat box. Love to see your comments. What have you noticed or observed in terms of benefits from the team coaching? Hopefully, while all of you are thinking and adding to that, I'll start bringing in a couple of more points. So in terms of preparing and planning for team coaching, what's going on? What is the coach going to do and be aware of? So first off, what is the purpose of the team? And getting clear on that. Is the purpose of the team this project, or is it general oversight or management, etc.? And then also get clear on the purpose of bringing in a coach. Is the coach there to support the team looking at their relationships and how they're interacting with each other or others? Or is the purpose of the coach to support them in terms of defining tasks and timelines and action steps? It can vary. In the meantime, great, we're starting to get a couple of comments here. This is good. A neutral party, the coach, provides balance versus a direct member of the team doing the leading. Yes, absolutely. And another benefit, improve execution on important goals and priorities. So absolutely. Just as coaching has a benefit for individuals, the team coaching adds value to everything happening with the work the team's doing. The next piece of what you're doing as a coach is determining the objectives. So much like going into an individual coaching engagement, what does the client want out of it? You're determining the objectives for the team. Now, keep in mind, you do have stakeholders. So the organization has objectives as well. The team has objectives, and there may be individuals on the team with their own objectives. And there's this awareness and this balance, a coordination with everybody involved in terms of what are the objectives you're working on in that coaching engagement. Identify who's going to participate. So when you look at ICF definitions, they talk about group or team coaching being 3 to 15 people. I find the sweet spot is more in the 5 to 12 range. You get less than 5 and you have less of a conversation going on. You get more than 12, it starts getting really tough to include everybody and make sure everybody has a chance to talk. Another big question that comes up is it appropriate for the boss to be there? The answer is it depends. You've probably heard me say that as an answer before. So sometimes having the boss participate in the team coaching is a benefit to everybody else because they like the boss is supportive of all of them, helpful to them, brings in some good ideas, and it's a value add. Other times having the boss there can get in the way. It may be boss is not well liked. It may be the boss is dominating the conversation and very directive, and it misses, totally missing the opportunity for what comes out of the team coaching. So you're identifying who's there. Now, another consideration can be stakeholders. Is it appropriate to bring in stakeholders, whether it's a different department or a different team, because what one team is doing affects what another team is doing? So you're taking the time to figure out who's going to be there when you are doing the coaching. In the meantime, a couple of more comments got added. So let's share these. It said, once team coaching is introduced to an organization, other teams take notice and want to be that successful. They want to be coached as well. Uh, for example, the marketing team makes the sales team jealous, etc. So true. And one team sees the benefit gained by another team and they want in on that. Absolutely. Somebody else said a team that they coached asked the boss not to attend and then promised a readout of what they accomplished, and it worked really well. So that means giving the team ownership of what that readout is. They've got to create that and provide that to the boss. And then we've got, let's see, team coaching can provide awareness building and enlightenment of other team members' work processes, which may reveal team blind spots. Excellent point. Absolutely. There are so many benefits out of team coaching. The same is true of group coaching. So absolutely love it. Thanks for the input, everyone. Another piece of the preparation and planning is creating the approach. How is the coach going to work with that team? So we talked about using different modalities. We talked about stepping in and out of the conversation based on what's happening. There's also different ways to even have the conversation. Is someone else going to lead the conversation? Are you going to coach one person in front of everybody else? Are you coaching everybody at the same time simultaneously? Are they coaching each other? Is it a brainstorming or a mastermind group? How is it going to be handled in terms of running those sessions? If you're going to bring in a co-coach, you're working with that as well. What is the role each one will have, and when will the other one step in or out based on what they're doing? So you're getting strategic in terms of how you're using the time for the team coaching. You're choosing which processes. So much like you do with individual clients, it may be you say, hey, what are the pros and the cons? And you work through that list. It may be, okay, describe the steps if you go this direction, and then the steps if you go that direction. There's so many different ways to have the conversation, and you're choosing that with the team. And then, of course, fully engaging in the coaching, being present, noticing all of the different individuals and the interactions, and asking those questions. So a couple of thoughts for you, and please add to these. So just as you do with individuals when you're coaching a team, you're putting them in charge. They are the ones who are choosing. That's where you get the ownership from. Invite them to share their thoughts, to reflect on what they're noticing, to brainstorm together and make their decisions. Some of the techniques that you'll apply, you're adjusting to individual personal styles and learning styles, and you're also accommodating for having all of them within the team. Keeping it positive and proactive, very much in line with what we do as coaches. And all of you, please add in the box, in the chat box, add tips and techniques to share with everybody. Some of the tools that you can set up, many of you are familiar with the DISC. You all, anyone who graduated from CCC has an assessment dashboard where you can go in and give the DISC at wholesale. What's really nice is that when you're working with the team, you give each individual on the team the DISC, and then you can pull what's called a team report for free. And that team report really looks at how the individuals can interact and work effectively together. And so it's a fabulous tool. Quite a few coaches going into working with the team will start with that to set up, help them design that coaching engagement. It's an option you can offer to your clients. And then, of course, co-creating tools. So really working with them based on what the focus or the objective is. So if it's about relationships, it may be doing some mapping with them on the various relations. If it's project-based, it may be working with them on their timeline, their task listing, their milestones, etc. So coordinate with your team. And what additional tips, techniques, or tools do you have to offer? Put them in the chat box. Let's share that with everyone. And by the way, in the chat box, you do have the option of choosing that all attendees can see it. So feel free to do that and share it with everyone if you want to. I'm guessing there's a wealth of knowledge with the group that's here. In terms of processes for the team coaching, I mentioned the assessment, doing the disc, the observation, whether you're doing that as the sole coach working with that team or you have a co-coach and one of the two of you is focused primarily on the observation and sharing those observations, the active coaching and the approach there, different options, whether you're coaching everyone simultaneously or honing in on something one person's working on while everyone else is watching, or they're coaching each other, or a combination of the above. The team coaching session can involve brainstorming. It can involve mastermind, where people are giving specific suggestions for how to approach things. And let's talk also about technologies. So first off, you have general tools, and these can be used when you meet face-to-face, and they can be used when you're online. Surveys. Sometimes surveys are done in advance. You want to find out where people are at on different things. The survey may be what they believe has to be talked about when you do team coaching. It may also be a survey in terms of where they think they're at with different relationships or tasks or assignments or their level of engagement or their level of productivity. So there are any number of surveys you can do ahead of time or while you're there. Word diagrams, there's some really great tools online where people put in different words and then it creates this piece of art with the words that are put in most often being larger and more prominent in the piece of art that has all the words in it. It may be doing polls, and that is going to be based on the work. Sometimes you're doing it while you're there in session. Other times you're doing that separate from the coaching session to figure out where people are at. It may be voting. What's the decision going to be? Different people have different perspectives. And then think also about the tools for note-taking. How much note-taking are you doing while you're there? Who's doing that? Where's that being kept? How's it being shared? Who's it being shared with? So planning those different tools. Let's see. So someone brought up the question, do you recommend more than one coach for group coaching to conduct breakout scenarios? Or do you think assigning a spokesperson for the team could serve the purpose, allowing for more interaction? To me, the answer to that is all of the above. It's both. Sometimes it makes sense to have more than one coach for the different breakouts, and sometimes it makes sense to put them in charge and the one coach moves between the different groups. It's more than just, hey, what's the right answer? It's what's going on with this particular team, the individuals on this team, what's the purpose of those breakout sessions? What do they want to accomplish? How are they served by naming a leader within the team? How are they served by having more than one coach so that coaches are available for each of those breakout rooms? There's a lot to be explored there. It's a great question that you're asking. The right answer is really, it depends on the team and what they want to accomplish. So thank you for putting that in there. I love it. All right, good. That was helpful for you. Awesome. Another thing to be thinking about, and this of course is more and more true, is virtual sessions. So many organizations have teams where the members are all over the globe. You also have seen, of course, during COVID, more and more people working from home. Think about the boom in Zoom in and of itself. It's been amazing. There are so many online platforms. So you've got Zoom, you've got Microsoft Teams, you've got an Adobe version, there's GoToWebinar, there's WebEx, there's Blue Jeans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a ton of online platforms. Those of you that did the Master Coach class experience that, because we do the group coaching and we use all different platforms so that you get exposed to them. Keep in mind, different organizations make their own call on what platform they want to use. So it may or may not be one you're familiar with. If they say this is what we're using, or this is the only platform allowed on our computers, that may be what you're using. So your comfort level with multiple online technologies is going to be really important. You want to play with different ones, practice with different ones, so that you can easily be up to speed with whatever platform the client is choosing or wants. Above and beyond that, if you're the one doing the choosing, one of the big conversations is, okay, is it confidential? So for example, it used to be that Skype was the tool used for coaching sessions. And now the conversation is, no, you can't use Skype because it's not confidential. When you sign up for a Skype account, you give them permission to access the information, the content, the conversation. Okay, that's not confidential. And so some of the platforms that you're looking at are more confidential, some are less confidential. That's one of the reasons companies have their own preferences, because they did their own research and looked into that and what level of protection they wanted. Consider the confidentiality of it. Another consideration of different online platforms is going to be ease of use. So Zoom is globally fairly easy for people to access. There are certain countries where it's very difficult for them. And so in those countries, people prefer something like Microsoft Teams. Alternatively, sometimes people have trouble with Microsoft Teams and the technology. So there's different scenarios. It depends on who's involved and who's going to be joining. It is smart for you to play with different ones, plan ahead, think ahead before you choose which one you're going to use if you are the one doing the choosing. So you've got the confidentiality, yes, as somebody said in the notes, the security considerations. You've got ease of access for people to get on and use it. Then consider this. Do you want people on webcams? Do you want a whiteboard that everybody can write notes on? Do you want the opportunity to have a polling feature in the platform you're using? Many different considerations. And then, of course, conference calling. That, of course, is more commonly used with a large organization that has conference calling set up, or if everybody in the team is in the same country, so that you're not having people make international calls to get into that session. It does lend itself more to the online platforms, by the way, more common. And there are so many different ones, so definitely be checking that out. Some of you can probably share experiences you've had with different online platforms. So please do put your notes in. Do you have some that you recommend? Some you've used, what worked well, what didn't work well? We'd really love to see those comments on that. I'm going to bring up another sharing of ideas and invite all of you to add to this list. Consider available metrics that are already in place with the team you're working with. So many organizations do track level of engagement, level of productivity. Get your baseline before you start working with that team, and get your baseline, and then reassess, get the metrics again after you've been working with that team. And how is it affecting their engagement and productivity? Look at how you will measure outcomes. Is it going to be based on completing tasks, achieving specific objectives? One of the challenges we often face in coaching is when the outcome is tougher to measure. Hey, it's about the relationships, it's about people communicating, it's about managing the conflict. Little tougher to measure that one. So how are you determining what outcome is desired and how success is measured. Thinking about that ahead of time. When it's more the relationship side, managing with conflict, it tends to be the qualitative feedback. The surveys, people giving their thoughts and their impression on different pieces. What additional ideas, thoughts, tips do all of you have for somebody going into team coaching? Think about, if you're doing team coaching, what do you wish you'd known when you started? And share your tips with the others. Let's get those into that chat box. At this point, I'm really going to shift to the asking all of you to say, okay, here are your questions. Here's what you want to talk about. Here's where you want to go. Because from here, I'm going through what some of the different resources are. That's something we can handle fairly quickly. Let's take a few minutes and find out what your questions are, what else you want to explore. So I'm pausing, looking for that input. Got a lot of quiet out there. I'm going to throw up a few resources. I've got another slide coming up to go to Q&A, so please do be thinking. Oh, here's one. So the Enneagram is popular right now. Good question. Has anyone else on the call used a team-based Enneagram in team coaching? So please do share here if you have. And while we're giving all of you time to both respond to that question and put additional questions in there, yes, I'll bring up a couple of the resources that are available to you. So of course, you've got the International Coaching Federation. You can visit their website and access the team coaching competencies there, as well as see a ton of other great information. The Center for Coaching Certification is here and available to you, as is the Center for Coaching Solutions. So the Coaching Federation website is www.coachingfederation.org. Do visit that, check them out, get your hands on the team coaching competencies. Also available to you, of course, is the Center for Coaching Certification. Come visit us, let us know what else we can be helpful with. Some of you are familiar with what we offer under Center for Coaching Solutions. So this is really under the Center for Coaching Certification and available in organizations. We do coaching program support where we help a company that is starting a coaching program, or we help them evaluate, or we help them with their ongoing management of it. In addition to that, we do provide coaches. Those of you that are graduates have seen the emails. We have several contracts going with different organizations, and we're providing the coaches to them. And you'll see more of those emails coming out saying, hey, we're looking for coaches. We're placing graduates in those opportunities. In addition to the public training that is offered, we also go into organizations. We do coach training, and we do a program called Coaching Skills for Professionals. When an organization wants to create more of a coaching culture, it makes sense for them to have a training in terms of the coaching that, hey, they don't need the full-on coach training certification process. They're really looking for the basic skills and how to start creating that culture. And that's available as well. And then, of course, the ongoing support for the program. So if you're interested in any of that, of course, let us know. There is a blog available, a couple of articles a week. We've got the Coaching Perspective series. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had our book launch for number 10 in this series. I actually think I see a couple of authors from previous books on the call right now. So very exciting. And we're going to be working on the next one soon if you want to be part of that process and get published. And then the free webinars. So you see those on the website. You can visit the page on the website at any time. We're updating that each time. And we do put those out in the newsletter and on social media as well. We also started a podcast. So unsure if you've noticed that. It's available to you, a new podcast every week. If you want to check in with, hey, team coaching, setting that up, etc., how do you do that? You want to talk about a coaching program in your organization, whatever it is, we're available to you. We also are available to outsource any of the pieces of that. So what's next for you? If you want to talk about a coaching program in your organization, if you want to talk about having that team coaching going on, that kind of thing, let me know and we'll schedule time to talk about that and look at what will support you in being successful. In the meantime, on an individual basis, as you do with clients, do for yourself. What is your action plan? So complete coach training, review your coach training that you have done, intentionally apply the skills, think about engaging a coach for yourself or barter, do a trade, coach another colleague, they coach you, or do a round robin with that. And then of course, let us know if you want support in your coaching program, whether it's helping the people that are working in it internally or providing external coaches. So now we are in the Q&A time. I have covered the content I've got available for you. So let's shift into additional questions you have. And by the way, thanks for the comment on the podcast. I'm so glad to hear you like it. It's really interesting doing podcasting because you create that recording, you put it out there, and you have no idea if anyone's even listening to it and what they think of it. So thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad to hear that. What are your questions, everyone, in terms of team coaching? What else do you want to know? And while I'm looking for all of you to put questions in, I'm going to throw something else out. Unsure, I know a couple of you here were there late yesterday. We had a session with ICF's ethics community of practice, and they talked about embedding diversity at ICF. It was a fabulous conversation, and a conversation that we talked about, hey, this has got to keep happening. Let's keep that conversation going. So I do want to share that that's really important in the coaching space. As a matter of fact, on our YouTube channel, we've got the recording of the program I did on the ethics of diversity. In the podcast, there's one on ethics of diversity, and now there's also going to be one, just recorded it, on doing good, which is now number 28 in Code of Ethics. And how do we do good as an individual? So giving you those tips. That's actually what I wrote about in my chapter for Coaching Perspectives 10. So a lot of good information there, and we want to keep that conversation going. ICF has multiple communities of practice. For those of you that are members of the ICF, which means you've done the professional coach and the master coach class, that gives you enough training hours so you can join the ICF. All the communities of practice are free to you, and they all do quarterly programs. And there's a community of practice for team coaching, one for internal coaches, one for executive coaches. There's so many different groups in there. So of course, I'm a co-leader with the ethics community practice, absolutely having a good time with it. And there's lots of great programming coming out of it. Take advantage of that. We do list a lot of their webinars on the website, and it's very important to get in and do more. Yes, another comment in here, ICF did a webinar on the value of change management, partner with the coaching program, which is something that I've been going to an organization that trains people in change management and talking about the coach training and the coaching skills and the application of them in the work they're doing in change management. And so we're going to see more of that. My hope is to have a collaboration of a change management program and our coach training that put together serve people in moving toward ICF membership and credentialing. So that one's coming. I think others are coming. Project management is going to be a big one. Recovery is going to be a big one. So there's a lot coming in terms of what's happening with the coaching and other areas of expertise. So super exciting, super exciting. In the meantime, I'm not seeing any more questions. So I'm gonna ask all of you one. Did we cover what you wanted to know about team coaching? We want to make sure we got you there. So I'm checking in with you on that. So good, it was helpful to you. Awesome. ICF improv skills session was with Neil was very strong content wise as well as entertaining. Oh, that is awesome to hear. So cool you enjoyed that. All right. And looks like we got you there in terms of information. Let's see, another one. Organizations that have Six Sigma or Lean type programs are CCC graduates fitting into those for workshops with the organization contracts you have seen. I do have, as a matter of fact, one of our coaching perspectives chapters was written on by a graduate who was working in the Six Sigma program in their organization and their application of the coaching there. So we're definitely seeing that and seeing that application. So excellent. All right. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Very excited to have you here. Glad to see your notes that this was helpful. Okay, I just see a question in the question panel. So I was watching the chat box, so I'm noticing that. Summary, the difference between team and group coaching. So the team is people that are working together on a specific objective. So they all are working on the same objective. A group is people who are working on individual objectives in a similar area of content. So everybody is working on finding their own job, for example, and or everybody is working on running their own business is a different type of example. So the team is they work together, they're working on the same project or task or whatever goal it is, whereas the group, they're working on their individual ones. So I hope that clarified that difference. Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for your questions. Do keep checking in on other upcoming free webinars. And if you want to give a free webinar, of course, reach out. Love to have more of you presenting here. Thank you, all of you. Make it a great one.